Welcome to Season 7 of The Good Pod. Today's podcast is presented by Dr. K.B Napier.
How should we view other faiths? In the Queen's Jubilee year in 2002, she departed from the true faith by inviting a Roman Catholic cardinal to preach to her. She also had previous Roman Catholic gatherings with the Pope and expresses her desire that we should all live together in harmony. What can we expect when she says she is a believer, but her so-called spiritual advisors are Romeward bound? Her son, Prince Charles, is of the same ilk, or rather worse. In the year 2002, he initiated a group called Respect, which was set up to join together all faiths to show greater tolerance and understanding. And in fact, Tony Blair had a similar role after he left his premiership. The Prince is calling for people to spend more time trying to understand each other's faiths. He said that initially it would focus on greater tolerance between faiths, but over 2 years it will target people in all areas of society. That was written in the Catholic newspaper, The Universe. Now, ignorance is an obstacle to faiths coming together, said Catholic Bishop Kevin MacDonald. The Catholic Bishop of Lancaster added that we should remember and help asylum seekers, even though they enter this country illegally, and some are terrorists, many are criminals, and all hate our own country. After all, he says, Jesus himself was a refugee, which is a rather big slice of creative thinking. No, he wasn't, and I've written about that. But how should we respond to other faiths? There's a growing politically correct way of approaching this subject that involves us all in covering over flaws in other faiths, especially the ultra-violent Islam, and joining with them in things that do not require us to think about differences. Should we join this ever-growing movement? The basic answer is no. What then about having tolerance for other faiths? Again, the basic answer is no. Okay, then what about showing respect for other faiths? Sorry, but the answer is still no. Am I being intolerant towards other faiths? Yes. I would remind readers of God's own response to other faiths, and this is where we must take ours from. He said this in Exodus 34:14, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God." That's in 25. "For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God." Now, you don't have to bow down physically to other faiths. You can do that simply by allowing them to exist as they are. Knowing this, can you imagine what God condones his people, that God condones his people joining with other faiths? Can you really imagine that? The answer should be obvious. What more proof than how about Exodus 20, verse 3? "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And in 23:13, he says, "And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth." So you shouldn't even be talking about other faiths, let alone linking with them and discussing what they believe. And then we have Deuteronomy 6, verses 14 and 15. It flies in the face of the royal family's beliefs. It says, "Ye shall not go after other gods, of the gods of the people which are round about you, lest the anger of the Lord thy God be kindled against you, and destroy you from off the face of the earth." God says this because, in Deuteronomy 7:4, "They will turn away thy son from following me." That is precisely why I object to Islam being propagated and allowed in the UK, because they are turning people away from God and towards their violent regime. So take heed to yourselves that your heart be not deceived, we are told in Deuteronomy 11:6. Then we have words that should chill the bones of all men who prophesy and preach what they are not called to do. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And that's in Deuteronomy 18:20. This applies to all false prophets and preachers, from charismatics to ecumenists. Prince Charles and his mother speak as though their words are from God. They dare to place other faiths on a level with God's word. For this they stand condemned. Now it's possible that although she's slightly off beam, that the Queen herself could possibly be a saved woman, but I don't think that of her son. Now bear in mind that to offer solace and friendship to other faiths is to serve their gods. Remember, this has nothing to do with social interaction. We can love a fellow human being and yet dislike his or her beliefs. Then we come to the reason why the Jews are currently in a long exile in their modern Babylon for the past 2,000 years. In Deuteronomy 31:20 we told this, "For when I shall have brought them into the land which I swear unto their fathers, that floweth with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten and filled themselves, and waxen fat, then will they turn unto other gods, and serve them, and provoke me, and break my covenant." This is happening today. All the woes known to the Jews from their dispersion to now are due to their disobedience and rejection of the Messiah. And the same woes will be ours if we follow in their footstep, giving credence to other faiths, so-called. Doesn't matter what they're called. Other faiths are nothing to God or to us. They are false. They follow after other gods. We could even say that Jews today follow after other gods, for they have remained in their old covenant ideas, which they themselves have broken. Thus they are no better in their beliefs than Muslims, and just as lost and bound for hell. Am I being too cynical? Look at Judges 10:13. It says, "Yet ye have forsaken me and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more." Here God is telling the Jews bluntly that because of their disobedience he refuses to deliver them from war, bondage and fear. That's why they were stuck in a groove of malcontent after they were taken over by the Romans. Stop wondering why the horrors of the Holocaust were visited upon God's people when his own word tells us that he refuses to help them because of their disobedience. Today we suffer the same fate for our disobedience and tolerance for all things godless. Is this what Christians want? Well, this is their lot if they show tolerance for faiths that reject God and mock or reject his word. What of the way Christians, so-called, not only tolerate other faiths but join with them in mock acts of worship? Every time Christians join with Roman Catholics in their false worship, they invite the anger of God, as we see in 2 Kings 22 verse 17. It says, "Because they have forsaken me and have burned incense unto other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place, and shall not be quenched." God hates other faiths with an all-consuming wrath, so we have no business showing laxity in the face of other faiths. We have no mandate to join with them, or to show sympathy for them, or to be tolerant towards them. Yes, we must be tolerant towards people who are as lost as we once were, but we may not tolerate or accept their faith, because God loathes their false faiths. We may not accept or show sympathy for those things that God hates. God hates them because they are false beliefs that detract from his word and person. Now I hope this short paper causes readers to think again about obedience, for to be obedient to God will mean disobedience to society, and even in the future to the law. That is how it must be. This is not hatred for nations or for people. That's xenophobia. It is a hatred for what they believe. That is how we can speak to them in love and kindness, yet loathe their beliefs. This is the way we must be towards other faiths. No other response is acceptable, because no other response is of God. He hates false faiths. Those who do not obey him follow after other gods, whether or not they give them names, or if they practice their variety of beliefs and rites. Thus, ecumenists and charismatics alike poise on the very brink of darkness, targets for the wrath of God as he watches them vainly show tolerance towards faiths that he condemns and loathes. Don't follow the spirit of the age. Do not fall into the trap of political correctness just because it is in vogue and is headed by our Queen and her son. They err and must not be followed in this matter.